Hey folks, welcome to Tools 101 with DM Journal. As you can see, today's topic, measuring tools. Now, compared to the other topics, this does not seem like we need to go over this, but I must. Safety first. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what your task is, or whatever it is, just make sure you're always being safe. And one of the ways that I know that you can be safe is by wearing something called PPE. PPE stands for personal protective equipment. And that could be like this hard hat, these safety glasses, an apron, face mask, respirator, earplugs, gloves, long sleeve shirts, long pants, safety toe shoes, etc., etc. And even though we're not going over anything that dangerous to need PPE like that, I just think it's really important for you to always remember that you need to be safe. Doesn't matter what you're working on. Always be safe. Now, looking at these measuring tools, I want to first let you know that before, when it came to measuring things and all that, you might notice if you look in the past, like past structures and things like that, you will see that at one point in the early days of humanity, there was no standardized measurement for things. There was no standardized measurement. For example, a cubit was the size of a forearm of a particular, whoever was maybe the architect of that job, it was the size of their forearm. That was a cubit. A foot was literally that person's foot size. It wasn't until like many, 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 many centuries later that we finally started standardizing measurements and making it so that way this is a foot, this is an inch, this is a centimeter, this is a millimeter. It took time. So anyway, this is the first tool that you should know. This is called a tape measure. Now I know some of you might say, duh, Steve, I know that. Yes, but not everybody does know that. This is a tape measure. And the most important thing I want you to know about a tape measure is that you will find yourself using this tool more so than just about any other measurement tool on this table. This guy right here helps you in so many ways. So I would say this, when you get a tape measure, if your budget cannot afford it, it's fine. You can always work your way up. Make sure you buy a tape measure that you will use consistently. Many times, tape measures come with a thinner blade, and than this one, and because of that, sometimes the writing is smaller, or they don't extend out as far. So just make sure you're being careful with them because they have a better chance of buckling, and the buckling can actually mess up the metal and mess up the tape, and then because of that, the tape could, you might need to replace it. So I would recommend that you do your best if you can, to buy a measuring tape that is of good quality. This one is by Klein. I also have a Milwaukee. I have Anvil, which is like the Home Depot store brand. I have a Stanley. This is not this is not claiming any brand better than the other. I'm simply sharing with you. Just get a brand that works for you. Okay. Now, in this case, this one in particular is a wide blade. Okay, I have my preference is the wide blade tape measures. Why? Because you can extend them out over, sometimes some of them over 10 feet without them buckling. Okay. And sometimes you need that because sometimes you need to reach out to something that's a little bit out of your reach, and you need to hook on to whatever it is you need to hook on to, so that way you can get your measurement. This works great for that. The wide blade also has larger numbers on the measurements, so you can see it from a far distance where you are in terms of your measurements. It makes it easier. Another thing that's also nice about many of the wide blade tape measures is that the numbers are printed also on the back of the blade, which is great when you need to read the numbers from, let's just say, beneath the tape measure. Okay. It makes it a lot easier. Now, you may come across, if you're getting into the trades, I would recommend that you buy a tape measure that's more so suited for that trade. So, for example, there are some tape measures that literally they coil up. I forgot the name of them. It's not coming to me at the moment. But you literally have to reel them up. There are also type of different types of tape measures where different type of measuring tools where you just like the tape that they use, like if you're a tailor or maybe you're going to learn how to alter clothes and things like that. It's basically like a rope. You can wrap it around you and get a measurement. For some of you who may go to the gym and things like that, or go to a tailor or some kind of person who works on clothing, you will see that many times when they're getting your measurements, they use a measuring tape. You know, it's the same concept. The difference is just the materials that are made with them. I also have other measuring tools like a cyclometer and I forget the name of the other one, but those are more for specialized uses. So I recommend that for those who are just starting, do not worry. In fact, actually, for those who are just starting, a good portion of these tools you do not have to worry about. But the ones that you do have to keep in mind are the ones I'll point out to you, like this one. Always, always have a good tape measure. I will also say this from experience. No two brands of tape measures are made the same. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I've seen it happen. And I've even heard it from an experienced electrician who I was working with. He said, use the same tape measure for all your measurements. Actually, it was a carpenter and electrician that told me this. He said, use the same tape measure for all your measurements. Why? Because for some reason, sometimes some companies have a difference on their 1 inch to another. In fact, you might find some YouTube videos where some tape measures would show that the 1 inch is just a tad bit off from another, and or just the measurements just seem to be a little off. You'd be surprised over a considerable distance. Sometimes that small little difference in measurement can make all the difference. Excuse me. It doesn't mean it has to be a big difference. It's just that it could be something noticeable. So, especially if you're getting to fine work, you want to make sure that your measurements are as accurate as possible. So make sure you use the same tape measure throughout. Now, many times, if you're using the same brand of tape measure, you are least likely to deal with that problem. Just keep it in mind. So if you're using, let's just say this Klein tape measure, don't go and grab the anvil tape measure and do the same measurement and expect it to always be the same. There could be a little bit off. Now, granted, in construction and a lot of the trades, there is forgiveness and there is a range that you can kind of work things through. But sometimes some people are really into the very, very fine work where their measurements have to be precise. Like for those who work in people who work with metal, for example, and their measurements have to be super precise. Like like precise measurements is such a big deal. So always make sure that when you're using a measurement tool, even though there's like grace for like carpentry and even electrical and certain things like that, in some other fields, there is not that much of a grace of a window of grace, or tolerance that you can that you will have. So make sure you just remember that. Hopefully that didn't sound like me rambling too much for you. I just wanted to make sure that I made that clear. The next tool, a level. This is a torpedo level, or at least I call it a torpedo level. And this is what will help you make things level. Now, if you're looking at this table, you will notice that I have this 8-inch one, I have this 2-foot one, and I have this 4-foot one. They all do the same thing. The difference is just that this smaller one can attach to metal because it has a magnet on one end. And the beautiful thing is that with many times when you have a level, there's straight edge. So you can also use it as a straight edge if you need to draw a line or whatever. Now, many of you may know how to use a level due to the fact that you have pictures at home and you have to use some kind of level to hang the pictures up because you want your pictures to be level. So when it comes to levels show a lot of discrepancies when you get things right or when you get them wrong. The bubble always tries to go up. That's the one direction it always tries to go up. You notice why? Because when you're in water and you release some bubbles from your mouth, the bubbles go straight up. They don't go left or right. They don't go all these different directions. No, they go straight up. And that's the same thing when it comes to levels. And the thing is, with levels, they give you a tolerance on how much you'll be, you know, it'll be considered still straight. Okay. Like I said, in some fields, the tolerance is not the same. So make sure you're being mindful of that when you're using levels. Another thing I will say when it comes to levels, you will notice that you can go and you can put a picture, and the picture will be completely perfectly straight. Like it will be level. Like there's nothing, is not crooked, nothing. But for some reason the picture looks crooked on the wall. It does not mean what you did was wrong. It could be because literally the wall is crooked, or the ceiling is crooked, or the floor is crooked. And I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but it does happen. Many times structures settle. And when they settle, things get a bit crooked. And when it gets crooked, you don't realize it at first because you have such a large surface area to look at. You don't notice it until you start putting things, until you start populating that area. And then you notice, oh, wait a minute, this ain't right. This don't look right. This doesn't add up. And it's usually because the level was right, but the building or the structure was wrong. If you followed the level precisely, and you did exactly as you followed it, and you made sure everything was completely straight, nothing crooked, anything like that, then you could have a issue where maybe the building settled and things are not right, or maybe something legitimately is crooked. It could be something that's broken. Now, you never know, but it could also be an issue with your building that makes things look a little crooked. That has actually happened, and I'm not afraid to say it because I've seen it. Another thing about, at least with this level, and you'll see it with some other levels, this one has has a 45-degree angle, a 45-degree angle tube in it, because 45 degrees is a very common angle that's actually used in many different trades and many different projects. So they just pre-built it in it so that way it's easy for you to get your 45-degree angle. Beautiful thing about 45-degree angles is because it leads us to our next tool, the square. This one right here is called a speed square. Why is it a speed square? Because you can quickly get your measurements from this square. Also, it's known as a rafter square. Why? Because when you're putting on rafters for a roof, this is what will help you with getting rafters the right angle, the right measurement, and everything on it. This will definitely be a great help to you. So for those of you who are going into the trades and all that stuff, I definitely recommend you having this. If you're a homeowner and you need to get certain things, you need to mark certain things, I still recommend you get this. Why? Because let's just say this right here is also another square, but let's just imagine it's not a square. Let's imagine it's a 2x4. Well, the beautiful thing about these speed squares is that they have these shoulders right here, and you put it against the edge of whatever, let's just say lumber. I work heavily in carpentry, so that's what I'm gonna be referring to a lot of. So you put it against this piece of 2x4, and you're looking. You already use your tape measure to get your measurement. You marked it with a pencil, preferably use a pencil, and then now you need to draw a line across. Well, now you have this square that you could put up against the edge. You look at it, you're like, 36 inches. Put the square to it, put your pencil, mark 36 inches. Now you have a straight line going across that 2x4. So when you want to do a cross cut, you can cut across it without the blade going crooked. Now, here's another thing. This is also a square. It's just a larger one. I will say this. I think the reason why they call these squares is because literally, like if these were the same size, you put them together, they really would make a square. But it makes it a lot easier when you're transporting it, when you're carrying it, all that stuff. You're able to get your measurements quickly with this angle. Triangles, these are right angle triangles for those of you who do not know or who may struggle with the geometry and stuff in mathematics. No shame, no accusations, none of that. Just letting you know. This works great. Why? Because you can see all these different grooves, right? All these different notches here and grooves that show you all these different angles you can put using this. This tool is amazing to have. The same thing with this one. This has the same thing too. So I'm not making it like one is more than the other. It's just because this one is more pronounced because it's heavily imprinted in it, you can see it better. But I would say definitely have you a square. If you want to have one of each of these, the larger one and the smaller one, that's fine. They even make one that's even smaller than this. So I just recommend that you have one so that way you always can use it when you're doing any construction type work. Continuing on with the squares. These right here are combination squares. These they do very similar to this square. They just look a little different. They have the 45-degree angle, as you can see here. This one in particular has a built-in protractor. So that way, let's just say you need to do, it helps you if you want to do certain angles and miter joints. This helps you with making the right measurements for it. Why? Because this will cover measurements that this guy will not. So that's where this one comes in handy. This one right here is just like this, just minus the protractor. These are for more precise measurements. The speed square will get you a rough estimate. It's very precise. It's still a very precise tool. But when you start getting even more precise, where things are, where the tolerance is even smaller, this guy will be your friend. You will like these. Speaking about being more precise, let's do this one first. This is, I forget the name of it. This digital bevel. I'll call it a square. But this one in particular, it works great as a square. It helps you with finding exactly what angles you need for your miter cuts and things like that. For those of you who do not know, miter cuts are really just angled cuts. All right, usually against a lateral plane. The that 45, those different angle cuts usually are called miter cuts, and this helps you greatly with determining what those cuts are, especially when you have something that's already cut to a certain angle and you need to mimic that same exact cut. This right here will help put your blade, let's just say to a miter saw, this will help put your blade to the exact measurement needed, the exact angle needed, so that way you can repeat that cut over and over and over again. Um, Now this one is a digital one, so literally, this one is already set at 45-degree angle. If you want to know if it really is true, this is a 45-degree angle. This is set to 45. You put it right in, boom. You don't even see any light between the two. All right, because literally that's how precise it is. So this bevel square definitely works amazing. This guy right here, in terms of getting exact measurements and miters and things like that and all that, this guy right here, you will see this not just in carpentry, but you will see this in metalwork. You see this in the automotive industry, even your cars manufacturers. They will be using this tool. This is called a caliper. This guy right here gets some exact measurements. I mean, I forget to how minute, but when I tell you that these guys will get down to like I think the thousandth of an inch, kind of the hundreds, something like that. I forget the amount, but when I tell you a really, really small amount, this guy will definitely do the work. And when I tell you that it is vital that you know that when you're using these things, if you're in that industry, I'm letting you know it is vital. For example, if you have, I don't know if any of you guys have ever used a metal lathe, but when the metal lathe is working, like, and any of you've probably seen videos online, you see a tube of metal spinning at a really fast speed, and then there'll just be this one blade that'll come up near it, and then just so ever so slightly, you see it come up, just glide against that cylinder, and you'll see it's literally shredding away from that cylinder, just at a very, very minute amount every so often. And literally, it's cutting into the metal. And you notice that when you're using something like calipers, you need your measurements to be super, super, super precise. So when people are using that metal lathe, for example, and they're cutting, let's just say they need to make a part for your car, they need to manufacture something, they need to fabricate something, and that lathe is going. They use this to make sure that the part that they're fabricating for your vehicle, for example, is exactly the spec'd out measurements that was given from the engineers when your vehicle was first made, or in the inception of your vehicle when they're making it. They make sure that they use these to ensure that the part is made exactly to the right specifications. For those of you who do not know, sometimes when you're doing metal work and you're working with fine machinery, the sometimes the hundredth of an inch difference can stop you from, it could be the difference between a a successful production day or catastrophic failure, simply because of that small difference. You'll be surprised on how much tolerance is in there. It's so low. In the engines of your vehicles, the tolerance is so low that it's really, really difficult to, how should I say, it's really difficult to say, it'll pass. Like it's very, very difficult. So the tolerance for things it has to be like super precise. I mean, the measurement for things have to be super, super precise. So the tolerance is very low. And that's where these calipers come in. You can also use these calipers when you're trying to figure out what size screw or bolt you need for a particular task. And you can use these calipers to figure out that measurement. Usually for your average homeowner, you don't have to worry about it. And I will tell you what you should have at home before you get into that. But yeah, have this. Well, for those who are getting into the trade where you need to know certain kind of measurements and stuff, make sure you have a set of calipers, especially those who are getting into like engineering or metalwork, things like that. Make sure you have calipers. They will help you greatly. This guy right here is called a framing square. This was also the same too. This is an adjustable T square, but they do the same thing. Similar to these guys, they do roughly about the same thing. But these were great when you need to get fast angles, for example, like 90 degrees in a certain spot. Like if you're working in a workshop, it works great. When you're drafting for blueprints or something like that, these will be the things you want to use. This particular guy works great when you're working on large, large sheets of material like plywood or sheetrock, something like that. Why? Because this is 48 inches, and averagely, your sheet of sheetrock will come out 48 inches wide. It could be it could be a long piece, but it will come out 45, 48 inches wide. So this works amazing for that purpose. And it has this fence right here where you can rest it on the top of the sheetrock. If you have your measurement, you can take your marking tool like a pencil and you just move straight down across. And it's a straight edge. So you'll be good to go when it comes to making a straight line. And you'll love it, and you'll be grateful for things like this. I know I'm grateful for this tool. This tool has done me some justice. Okay. This one right here helps me greatly in the workshop, especially when you're making like furniture pieces and things like that. It's amazing to have. Okay, so I would recommend it, especially because it has so many different angles, and I know for sure I'm not even using it to its fullest capabilities, but it's something that no, it's good for framing. So remember that. This is a post square. For those of you who are trying to figure out what I mean by post square, what I mean is, for example, have you noticed like the fence post, or maybe a post that holds up your the gate for your fence? You know, this would be something that you would want to use. The thing about this is because it has to cover two different planes. This also helps you with finding the right angles when you're doing certain cuts on your posts. Because sometimes you've seen some posts, You can have a nice, nice designs on the top, or maybe the post that you have is just too big and you need to cut it down to size. This is what you want to use. Last but not least, in this case, this is a scribing tool. Um, this is actually made for making circles. Now, you won't see this often. This is something that you will probably find in like a shop because this is a precise measurement tool. But this is what you would use. Let's just say if you need to literally draw circles or semicircles or some kind of curved angles and things like that. That's what this is for. It has this pin right here that it goes right into whatever medium you're working on, and then this part right here, you put a pencil in. Make sure it's nice and sharp, and then on the bottom end, the lead of the pencil can come out, so that way you can draw your circle or whatever it is angle that you're making. And that's this guy. This was more so a bonus thing for fun because we're just about done with all the tools here. For just for your average 101, just to get you going, I would recommend that if you're a homeowner, you make sure you have a tape measure. You have at least this 8-inch level, this 24-inch level, actually, and even a 48. Have the 48-inch as well, and at least one speed square. Okay, make sure you have that. If you're getting into the trades like electrical, carpentry, metalwork, it doesn't matter. I recommend you have a level, obviously a tape measure. Make sure you have squares and levels based off of what you're doing. So if you're into carpentry and framing and things like that, make sure you get a framing level, a framing square, a speed square. Um, if you get into landscaping, make sure you have a post square and post level. Make sure you have just your average level. Mind you, levels can get much longer. If I haven't said it already, levels can get a lot longer. There's 72-inch, there's 78-inch, there's 96-inch. Like they get big. Like levels, you'd be surprised on where you need a level of that size because, for example, if you're putting a deck, you don't want to use this 4 foot to get around. It'll take you a long time to make sure that whole thing is level. So a lot of times they make larger levels for things like that. If you're getting into fine metal work and things like that, make sure you definitely have a set of calipers. If you're even in carpentry, you could use these. But definitely make sure if you're getting into work with metal, make sure you have a good caliper. Definitely combination square. And if you're getting into, making angles and curves and designs and stuff, go ahead and get one of these. It wouldn't hurt if you got it, if you didn't get it, but why not? If you're getting into it. But most importantly, I will always say, make sure you have this, a tape measure, and make sure you have a square. Does not matter in a level. Tape measure, level, square. Always remember that. Tape measure, level, square. Measure, level, square. Measure, level, square. Always remember that whenever it comes to anything that you're doing, if you're going to use any tools, level, measure, level, square, something like that. I just made it up on the spot. So anyway, if there's anything else that you guys have in mind, feel free to drop a comment. Um, if you have any ideas for other topics, you never know. Maybe your topic might be the next one. And that's it for now. Please like, share, subscribe, smash that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.